HelloFresh, free shipping, $30 off your first box. HelloFresh.com/Colin. Good stuff. Christine Leahy joining me again today. It's the NFL free agency time. She'll have a story in just a couple of minutes. There's more things out there getting very close. A prominent player out there is close to signing. Now, there was an interesting thing that happened yesterday. It broke on our show. Arizona released their veteran safety, Tyrann Mathieu. Honey Badger went to LSU. Very instinctive player. He's a good player. They just didn't want to pay what they paid. Very popular in Arizona. Had a little bit of a troubling background in LSU before the draft, but he came into the NFL, was a good citizen, good player, good teammate, coachable, all that stuff. And I said, this is the busiest free agent period I ever remember. And I'm trying to think. We had Jay Glazer on yesterday. I think we have the bite. This is just a crazy busy free agency period. Now, we all kind of know that in the history of the NFL, you don't win Super Bowls with free agency. Then Denver did it a few years ago, and they got like Peyton Manning and multiple defensive players, DeMarcus Ware. But Jay Glazer said yesterday on the show, this is why this free agency period is busier than any he can ever remember.
Last couple of years, free agency's been a bad game of fantasy football. Guys whose names are big, who are getting overpaid, and you just don't win that way. You don't build. And a lot of teams realize that. They're like, we're not doing this. We're not going and throwing a boatload of money and Dominican Sues and all those guys. It's not a huge type of market because it just doesn't work that way. You got to build through the draft, and you got to smartly go get an Andrew Whitworth that is going to help the quarterback and the off. Right, great one, right? That's the type of guys you need. But then all of a sudden, the Philadelphia Eagles happened last year. And the Eagles went out, and they got guys like Alshon Jeffrey and the Chris Longs, and then they traded for J.J. They almost played this game that has become taboo in free agency over the last couple of years, except for a few teams, the Washington Redskins of the world. Right? That's all really did it. And all of a sudden, Philly had success with it, and that's why I think you see all these teams this year, they have changed their ways. They're like, because it's a what have you done for me lately league.
And it's also a copycat league. So the Eagles were busy in free agency, and they win the Super Bowl, and people are like, this free agency thing. What's it mean? It means a lot of teams will overpay and go. When you react to somebody and you copy somebody, you're probably not going to do it as well as they do it. But I do think this is interesting. The one franchise in the NFL where the owner loves to be talked about is the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, that's why Troy Aikman's on Fox and Tony Romo's on CBS and Jimmy Johnson's on Fox and Michael Irvin's on the NFL Network and Moose Johnson's on Fox. Jerry Jones loves that. He calls these networks. He promotes anybody that's been a Cowboy. Darren Woodson, ESPN. They love Cowboys on the air. They love to be talked about. You know the one team in the NFL we have not talked about in the last 10 days? The Dallas Cowboys. And Tyrann Mathieu, to me, is a really interesting fit because what they could use is an instinctive veteran safety on a team with young pass rushers and young corners and mostly young linebackers. I think he'd be a perfect, smart, instinctive veteran fit as long as you get the right number. But the reason they won't do it, my guess is because of Dez Bryant. Because they're going to have a $17 million cap hit or close to it if they re-sign Dez Bryant, right? If they keep him. And that's why I've said we should have a hashtag that trends, dump Dez. He is not worth $17 million. And I'll give you an example of how overpaid I think he is. I'm going to do the blind resume test. So I'm going to put up numbers that matter when you're a wide receiver. Now, one of these is Dez Bryant. 65 catches, 69. Over 800 yards, 5-6 touchdowns. One receiver clearly catches a higher percentage of balls thrown his way. So let's unveil the blind resume. It is Dez Bryant and Jermaine Kearse of the Jets. And there were also 3 or 4 other receivers in similar numbers. When's the last time you heard the story? Jermaine Kearse, if you don't throw to him early in a game, he'll quit on you. Oh, you've never heard that story. When's the last time? Jermaine Kearse, man, he'll blow up on the sidelines. Sometimes you don't even know why. Oh, you don't hear that story. Like, when you look at Dez's numbers, by the way, that's with a team with a great running back, with a team with a good O-line, with a team with a quarterback that's won 22 games in the last 2 years. Look at those numbers. Those are not $16.5 million a year numbers. They're Jermaine Kearse's numbers. A good wide receiver. $16.5 million is a great salary for a wide receiver. The average catch he made last year, 12 yards, was 54th in the NFL. 6 touchdowns, tied for 26th. That's just among receivers. Not good. Not good. Maybe we should do that hashtag. Dump Dez, because it seems to me the only reason that Dallas wouldn't be interested in Honey Badger is because they got $16.5 million tied up in Dez Bryant. And I think the blind resume test is great. You take all the emotion out of it, and I'm like, here are the numbers. And then you unveil it, and it's like, oh, you could do that with acting. You could do that with any business. Blind resume.
How could you do it with acting?
You could say, if I ran a studio, Sony or something, right?
Uh-huh.
And I was going to pay an actor, and I just did blind resume. Oscar nominations, Emmy nominations, last 7 films, how have they grossed? You take the emotion and the relationship out of it, because we all like certain actors more than others, and you went blind resume. Be amazing how often you're overpaying for somebody like George Clooney, who hasn't had a hit in forever. Like, you take the emotion out of it and you do the blind resume test. What are their ratings? What are the numbers they're delivering to the theater? How many people are they driving in? Are they big on social media? Will they go in the late night talk? Just put the numbers down and get out of emotion. There are actors in Hollywood. When is George Clooney's last hit? I mean, I look at what he gets paid. I'm like, I'm sorry, but it's been a long, long time. When's the last bad movie Don Cheadle was in? Like, he's always in movies that work. Blind resume, Dez is Jermaine Kearse with way more baggage and a lot more, 3 times the cost. I don't get it. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
The Raiders are reportedly close to finalizing a deal with Jordy Nelson.
Yeah.
And that would mean that they would release Michael Crabtree. You had a lot of thoughts on this during the break.
I think Jordy Nelson is really good. And I think Jordy Nelson's either going to go to Oakland with Derek Carr, who's really good, or Jordy Nelson's going to go to Tom Brady, who's really good. And this is going to come back and bite Green Bay because, you know, there's already this narrative out there, Christine, that Green Bay's cheap. Okay. So there's already a narrative. And the second thing is, Jordy Nelson's not a superstar receiver, but he's really high profile because he was great in the Super Bowl. He's Aaron Rodgers' best friend.
He's been in Pitch Perfect.
He's been in Pitch Perfect. That's actually a thing. It's a movie. He is one of the most known, and the Packer games are always on television. Mm-hmm. So he's a highly public non-star.
Right.
And so when you know the narrative is Green Bay's cheap, which some of that is really true, some of it maybe is overstated, if he lands with a great quarterback, they say the Saints want him Drew Brees, the Raiders want him Derek Carr, and the Patriots are interested Brady. He's going to have 75, 80 catches. It is going to look so bad for Green Bay. Listen, everybody knows when you lose free agents, they can go and succeed elsewhere. But you don't want your ex-wife marrying, you know, like the head of Facebook. That would be a real facial.
Sometimes that happens.
It does.
You're a bad husband. Going to move on to a great guy. I'm not saying you. Saying
yes,
like
right.
In general.
You know, I didn't take it personally.
As far as I know, you're a great husband.
I hope so. Yes, I think I am.
The Lakers lost to the Warriors, who were without Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. That's a pretty bad loss.
Did you see their starting 5 last night?
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But it's fine. They're going to be fine.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising that the Lakers got a little frustrated with themselves, and Isaiah Thomas and Julius Randle kind of got into it at the bench.
Yeah. It was pretty feisty.
I'm okay with that
sort
of thing. It's just a funny visual. And I know what you're going to say, because Isaiah Thomas, and you always comment on his height, but I do give it to you. That is a funny visual on this one. Luke Walton afterwards said that he did not mind this at all.
It was about, I like it though. I told him afterwards, I love it. As long as they're open-minded and whatever the hell they're arguing about, they get it figured out. We've been trying to get our guys to talk all year long. And if it's a heated conversation, that means it's 2 people that are passionate about something, and we'll take it on our team any day.
I think like you said, I think the visual is great.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where if you didn't play sports and you saw that, you're like, oh my God.
No, it's fine. They're probably best friends after the game.
Yeah, I don't. And by the way, Julius Randle has had a really good month or 2.
Yeah.
So he wants them all now. He's not an afterthought.
And I think that both of them are probably in a place in their careers where their future is uncertain, and so that causes people to get shitty.
Yeah, I mean, there's a real chance. Well, I know Isaiah Thomas will be gone, and Randall will probably be gone. So these points and these minutes,
they matter.
They really matter to these guys,
which is good.
Yeah.
And finally, Andrew Wiggins is reportedly unhappy with his role in Minnesota and that he is looked at as the third option behind Karl Anthony Towns and Jimmy Butler.
Well, he is.
I think, yeah, exactly. So he just signed a $145.5 million deal over 5 years. He is the third option. I am totally for this. You should be upset if you're the third option, because that, I think, is what causes a lot of people to be great, is when they're upset at these sort of things and they want to be number one. But the reality is he is the third option.
And it's also, this is on Andrew Wiggins, who I've seen actually play a lot live. He has no dog in him. Jimmy Butler does, and Karl Anthony Towns does. Mm-hmm. The difference between very good, and he's very good, and great in this league, it's a lot of times...
Some grit. Yeah.
In the NBA, the guys call it dog. And the knock on Wiggins is he's kind of passive. And I've watched him live either 3 or 4 times. I think I told you this once. He disappears in games. Like, he'll be like, Andrew Wiggins has 24. I don't remember 4 of them. Jimmy's a way more aggressive player. And Karl Anthony Towns barks at everybody. Refs, teammates. So, if Wiggins doesn't want to be a 3, then get gritty and get tougher and get verbal and get loud and get guys' faces. He's a very passive, gifted player.
I think there's somewhere in the middle. You don't have to be yelling at everybody in order to be a good player. And if you put up 24 points, I'm okay if it's quiet. That's fine. It's still 24 points. And maybe this is a little bit of the dog in him coming out and him saying to somebody who leaked it that he's upset with his role.
Yeah, but it is now his role. I mean, Karl Anthony... And by the way, Karl Anthony Towns is a center who can hit free throws. So he's not like one of those centers late in
that
games.
You can't play.
You can't play. Like Karl Anthony's great at the free throw line.
Yep.
Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line
I want to bring on
News.
Greg Jennings with Christine's story that Jordy Nelson could be going to the Raiders, who are Oakland now and Vegas soon. Listen, I was just saying about divorce. If you get divorced, you have to be okay with somebody leaving you and having happiness elsewhere. I think this could be rough on the Packers because Jordy is the rare good receiver with a huge profile. He's Aaron's best friend. He's been in a movie, The Back Shoulder. He's an incredibly high-profile good player. And, he's one of the 25 guys in the league that everybody knows who Jordy Nelson is and J.J. Watt is. I think this could backfire on them unless they're really ready for him to make 74 catches with Derek Carr. Do you like the move?
Backfire on the Raiders?
No. Backfire on the Packers.
Yeah, I don't see Jordy outside of that Green Bay uniform. I don't. I really don't. I don't even like it for Jordy, quite honestly.
Wow.
But more so for the Packers. I mean, with the rapport that he was able to develop with Aaron Rodgers, specifically in the red zone, really second to none. It was remarkable, the chemistry that they had in the red zone, his ability to uncover. Jordy is a extremely brilliant player who will have success wherever he ends up.
Right.
But he's better suited in that uniform that we've always seen him.
So you don't think he won't flourish with the Raiders?
Flourish? That's tough, man. I never say a player won't flourish. I don't think it's going to be as great as we all think.
Why? Because you know the relationship with Aaron and Jordy. Is it nonverbal? Is it what made it special? The back shoulder is sort of a thing they developed.
Yeah, it's nonverbal, but it's all time vested. And when it happened over time, that trust it started in the biggest game, the biggest stage of all of our careers.
Super Bowl.
Jordy was great. We knew going into that game, we were going to attack their receiver, McFadden. We were going to attack him, and Jordy was going to be the one that was going to be matched up on him and have to take advantage of that situation. And he stepped up and hit big, really big. That stands in the back of your mind, and moving forward, now you've developed a trust in a guy that is like, man, shoot, I can really trust this. And it literally blossomed from there.
Listen, Aaron would let go of the football, and he doesn't do this with other receivers. Aaron lets go of the football, and Jordy's not open. They always said the reason that Tom worked with Moss Brady and didn't work with Ocho is he trusted Moss because he had this great sense that Moss was such a football maven that he trusted Randy, knew the game so well that he could let go of the ball, and he and Moss instinctively knew what Tom would do. He never felt that with Ocho, who was gifted, past his prime but gifted. To your point, Aaron doesn't like picks.
No.
He doesn't just let go of the ball.
No, he trusts that Jordy is going to make a play or nobody can make that play, and which is why we saw so much firework between the two of them.
Yeah.
And like moving on to the Raiders, if this does pan out, it benefits Derek Carr to have a Jordy Nelson
Of course.
in-house. It benefits Amari Cooper to have him in your unit, in your room. John Gruden has always, every time he covered the Packers in his time in the booth, rant and raved about Jordy Nelson. I just love this kid. Like he understands how Jordy thinks, and it's more than just what he does on the field.
That I see, there's way more.
There's way more.
Okay, now Jimmy Graham is a non-blocking but a vertical, seam-busting tight end. Seattle never quite figured out how to use him ideally. He was a finesse player in a physical system. Does he work with Aaron Rodgers?
I think he works, but I don't like the move.
Why?
I don't like the move because they let their tight end for the future go, and Jared Cook a couple years ago.
Yeah, I loved him.
Like that was your guy, and younger,
great hands.
Great hands, could do both. Like I like that situation a lot better. With Jimmy Graham, the expectation is now going to be so high.
He's a guy that has a really high profile.
Without question.
Because he played on the talked about Saints and the talked about Seahawks. So the expectations for Graham are 70 catches, 9 touchdowns.
Absolutely. And I'm not saying he can't do it because we've seen Jimmy Graham perform. Yeah. He's a great talent.
Yeah.
And with Aaron Rodgers, I think everybody gets even better. And very few quarterbacks can do that for a player, Drew Brees being one of them, which is why we even know Jimmy Graham
exactly
in the first place. But I don't per se like it when you have to get rid of Jordan. Now I understand the money deal of it.
Yeah, I get it.
I get that. But to bring in Jimmy Graham and say, okay, this is it now? No, you need more than Jimmy Graham.
So I started the show by saying the happiness. United Nations every year has an annual list of happiest places to live in the country. Finland, Denmark, Norway. Happiness is cold, apparently. This is the actual.
That's why I'm in Minnesota.
Alpine skiing makes people really, really happy.
Absolutely.
And then Gronk came out with a tweet yesterday saying, "Good luck to Danny Amendola. You'll be free and happy." And I said, winning makes you happy in New England, but it's probably you got to sacrifice a little happy to win, which I'm willing to do in life. I'd rather win and be happy than be happiest and lose. Take me as a player. Were you happy in Green Bay?
I was happy in Green Bay. I was very happy in Green Bay.
Not much to do with nightlife.
Not much to do with nightlife, but that was not the focus.
For you.
That was not the focus. And when you're in Green Bay, I mean, that's really not your focus because it's so isolated and you're so football heavy. Everything is football. Everything is all day is football. Fans are football. It's all about the Packers in that organization and winning.
And but you're a family guy. You're good
family
with that.
guy. I was great with it's all depending upon the player and their situation and the stage in their career and their life.
Okay, so you can name a guy. Was there a guy in that room when you were there and you thought maybe he was single, he was young, and it's like he ain't happy here? Did you see guys in Green Bay that really truthfully were like, when I can get out of here, I'm getting out of here?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a bit of guys that you can tell it wasn't for them.
They were tolerating it.
It wasn't for them, and because they had been exposed to something other than that, and that's the key. For me, I came from Kalamazoo, Michigan, to Green Bay, Wisconsin. Very similar.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot to do. Not a great nightlife, trouble to get into and trouble to find you.
Good for you.
But when you're going, like New England is hard for guys who have been exposed to other
Miami,
other
Dallas,
situations,
Arizona,
and they're notable players, and they only have short stints because they've experienced the life, the football life, and possibly some winning. But it's like, that has to go. Like a Reggie Wayne. I mean, he was in Indianapolis, not a huge city.
He didn't like New England.
No. And it was because you have to conform to everything that you were not. You know what I mean?
So I think it's just you were a family guy from a small town, and you perfectly fit into Green Bay.
Absolutely. And then my transition to Minnesota, I love the city. The team, my time there, it was good. It wasn't great. I struggled there because we lost.
Yeah.
My kids struggled because we lost.
Right.
My daughter at one point was like, "Daddy, you guys always lose." And I'm like, "I know." And it mentally messed with me.
Yeah.
And then going to Miami, where a place where you're supposed to have a great time, hot, everything is laid up for you to have a great time. But it was the worst.
Because you're an organized guy and they're a disorganized organization.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I
said,
is Miami the fun NFL city? Like if you said,
without question.
because that's the fun NFL city.
Without question.
Miami.
Without question. Without question. I mean, Miami is what it is. It's Miami. It's sun and beaches.
They write songs about it. Down
like
in Miami.
my exit interview with Tannenbaum was, "Can I be candid? Man, it's very dysfunctional."
Oh God, yeah.
Like that was my outtake.
I've always said Miami is Cleveland with better weather. They're just as dysfunctional as the Browns, but they've got Marino and some history in Shula. Last 15 years, they are. I had a friend go to two practices in Miami as a scout. He's like, "You go to New England's practice, you go to Green Bay's practice, you go to Seattle's practice, you go to Miami's practice." It's a zoo.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a zoo, but it was completely different. It was different, man.
Yeah. All right, Greg Jennings, great seeing you. By the way, in 20 minutes, I'm releasing my third mock draft.
Third mock draft?
3.0 mock draft. We got
You changed it?
Well,
I was going to say.
Hey, I mean,
when does this get locked in?
I'm dating my mock draft. I'm not married. I can,
Oh, so you're changing your mind a bit.
I'm not.
Okay.
Who's your top pick? Well, I'll listen.
Why don't you listen in? A lot of football knowledge in 20 minutes. Greg Jennings, it's the Herd.